Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Inspired by the culture and spirit of New Orleans, the contemporary abstract and figurative work of Tony Mose and the urban expressionist art and jewelry of Tracy Mose are now on display and available at Esom Art Galleries. Esom Art Galleries are artist-owned and are located in Uptown New Orleans on Magazine Street and on Royal Street in the heart of the French Quarter. Esom Art Galleries, inspiration from the soul of New Orleans.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. We are right in the thick of football season, but we're going to talk a little baseball today as well. The playoffs are in full swing, and we have former Major League pitcher Scott Sanders coming to see us. We're going to have Delvin Breaux as well, but he cannot make it this week. He had some stuff going on at the school he teaches at. We'll get more into that later, but let's get into what's happened this weekend. The New Orleans Saints, every time you think there's a glimmer of big hope with a 34-0 win the previous week, well, they crapped the bed on Sunday, 20-13. They lost 20-13 to the Houston Texans. David Carr threw 50 times, man. He threw for 353 yards and a touchdown. Olave had a pretty good game. So did Shaheed. They both got into the higher, almost 100 yards in receiving, but they could not get it done when it mattered most. We're going to talk to Logan Graffey a little bit about the vanilla-ness of this offense. And vanilla-ness, if it's not a word, it is now. Okay, moving forward, the LSU Tigers and Tulane Greenway. What else can I say about them? They are both playing really well again all of a sudden. LSU, they had a loss a couple weeks back, but they're back, man. They won 48-18. They're showing they can score on anybody. And Jaden Daniels is still rolling along, 325 yards, 3 touchdowns, and almost 100 more rushing. This guy is definitely a Heisman candidate, make no two bones about it. They play Army this coming up week. They also have a running game with Logan Diggs that they are looking good right now. Neighbors is doing well. Even Kyron Lacey, another receiver, got over 100 yards. So congrats to them. Also, I didn't mention this, but the Saints do play in 2 nights right here in the Louisiana Mercedes-Benz, no longer the Caesar Superdome. So check that one out. LSU will play Army at 6:30, and Tulane's got a game this Saturday at 2:30. And Tulane is back in the rankings. They're 23rd and 24th in the 2 polls. Congratulations to the Wave. They're back where they deserve to be. Their only loss is to Ole Miss, and they're playing well. They won 31-21 on the road at Memphis. Not an easy thing to do. Pratt does Michael Pratt things. He had his 265 yards. He ran for a touchdown, and he passed for one. But how about Mekhi Hughes, man? Big game for him, the running back that's replacing Tajay, 130 yards and a touchdown. But the Pels, they're struggling in preseason, y'all. They're 0-3 right now. They've got a game against the Magic on the road tonight. We don't care about preseason records, but you like to see some success, right? But their opener is going to be next Wednesday at Memphis on the 25th, and then their home opener will be on Saturday the 28th against the Knicks at home. And by the way, you're going to see an ad right now. It's Max Durbus Realtors. They're the most trusted commercial real estate company serving New Orleans area since 1934, and they're coming up right now.
Max Durbus Realtors has been providing commercial and industrial real estate services to its clients for nearly 100 years. Since 1934, Max Durbus has been locally owned and operated throughout the greater New Orleans area, including the North Shore, Hammond, and even the Mississippi Gulf Coast and beyond. We focus on your commercial real estate needs so you don't have to. More information is available at 504-733-4555.
Welcome back to Primetime Sports, and you know what time of year it is. Hey, football is in full swing. We know that. We're going to talk to my man Logan in a little bit. Delvin Breaux was supposed to come, and he got held up. He teaches over at Booker T. Washington right in the neighborhood. couple people called in sick, so he can't make it. But Delvin will be back on a future show, former Saints cornerback, and one of the greatest stories ever. But we'll get into that in another day. But today, we're talking some baseball right now. That's right. The Major League playoffs, the American League Championship Series, the National League Championship Series is going on right now. So we brought a guy that has been there. He played for 4 teams, 7 total years and 9 different seasons in the majors. He is a local product, and he was on this show about 5 or 6 years ago in our other studio. His name is Scott Sanders, and he played at, well, first of all, let's start at Nichols. He started there in college and did a little high school at Thibodeau High School, but he also played for the San Diego Padres, the Detroit Tigers, the Seattle Mariners, and don't forget the Chicago Cubs. And he's right here once again. We're going to talk some about his career first, and then we're going to get into what's happened in the playoffs. What should we expect? It's been a surprise year, and I can't wait to get into it more with my man, Scotty Sanders. What's up, brother?
What's up, my brother?
Everything good?
Awesome.
It's good to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
Always been a fan. I was working for Fox Sports and Turner Sports mostly back in the day in the 90s when you were out there. I remember seeing that Sanders jersey out there, and I remember I was surprised when I was like, oh, this is a Louisiana guy, Brando. Brando was doing the games with me, and then Bob Rathman. But you made it to the majors, big dog.
Yeah, I was very blessed. All started right back in Thibodeau, and worked hard. And like we were talking earlier, I love basketball, and baseball was just kind of pastime for me. And got to college, got to Nichols, and Mike Knight, who was the head coach at the time. I was a bad boy for him. My father coached basketball there.
Mike Knight?
That's right, yeah, Coach Mike Knight. Won a ton of games, took us to the first regionals there. But he convinced me if I gave up basketball and focused on baseball, maybe one day I'd make some money.
You got good size. You could have been a hooper for sure.
That's right. That was my first love. But thank God I took his advice, and the rest was history,
It really is history. I mean, your family, you come from a family of baseball players. I've done some research. Your dad is Jerry.
That's right.
Jerry played, and did your grandfather play as well?
My grandfather and my couple great uncles. Yeah, my family is baseball lineage for sure. So.
And then your sons, one of them is playing right now with the Cubs.
Cam's in AAA with the Cubs.
AAA,
right.
And then I know Scotty played with Southeastern, so with Matt Reiser, correct?
That's right. Scotty had a nice career. Made it to a couple of regionals over when he was in Hammond, and had a nice career. Now he's over at Ochsner. He's a physician assistant and doing hips and knees. So.
Good for him, man. I mean, he went to med school. Congratulations. We're going to get in the family in a second, but I wanted to talk about your maturation into the pros. I mean, you played at Nichols. Now, when you were playing at Nichols, I know we all think we're going to be in the pros, right? We all do. No matter how good we are, we think, oh man, I'm going to be playing the Olympics or whatever it might be. Now, when you were growing up and then playing in high school and college, what were your true thoughts about what your future might be?
Well, obviously, since I was a kid, I had 2 dreams: either playing the MLB or NBA.
NBA, right? Yeah.
NBA was really my real dream.
Right, mine too.
Obviously, my feet were a little too slow. I could really shoot, but my feet were a little bit too slow to probably play in NBA.
Right.
When I got to Nichols, I was throwing, believe it or not, like 82, 83 miles an hour.
No, but that wasn't uncommon back then.
And exactly. But the thing about it was, I was only playing baseball for 2 months out the summer, right? Every day I came home from school, I'd touch a basketball and I'd touch a baseball through those 2.
Yeah.
So once I got to Nichols, I started training year-round. I started playing year-round. I started lifting weights year-round. So my arm strength just got bigger, stronger. Obviously, I had a good frame. I was 6 foot, 6'2", 6'3" at the time. I grew another inch when I was in college. I got to 6'4". Went to college at probably 175 pounds, left at 205 pounds.
Wow, okay.
And believe it or not, it was for the first time I was in actually playing summer ball in Wichita, Kansas. And I touched 90 for the first time.
Wow.
And
90 was a big deal, though.
Oh, 90 was a big deal. That was the ray guns, which is 90 then is probably about 94 now.
Yeah, 90 was a big deal because I remember when I first started doing Braves games, 93. Maddox wasn't really hitting 90. He would hit it. He started. No. Glavin, Smoltz was, but the fact is that now it's 100.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something real quick on this since we have a little extra time since Delvin's not here. I remember I saw a couple guys hit 100, and I was like, whoa! Yeah. It's like it happened only like 4 total times.
Right.
Like in my 13, 14 years doing games, and I'm like, now I saw Skeens hit He threw 29 pitches in one game at 100. I'm like, this is unbelievable.
So I that time, I was, like I said, middle of nowhere, Wichita. I was playing in Red Oak, Iowa, which was middle of nowhere.
Well, let's go back you were a first-round pick.
Right, and that's what I'm telling you. So what happened was nobody knew about me, right?
Yeah.
But when I touched 90, 91, 92 that day in Wichita, from that day on, every time I pitched until I got drafted, there was a scout in the stands.
Oh, so this was before you were drafted. Tell me how that works, because you were able to play minor league ball, kind of like Jamie.
This was summer ball. So
summer
Cummins
ball.
Collegiate League. Yep.
Oh, I
Summer
see.
Collegiate League.
Collegiate League.
That's right.
Okay, I'm confused.
We were playing against the Wichita Broncos. I was playing for the Red Oak Red Sox, but so they had obviously amateur scouts. It's the Jayhawk League, but after that game, every time I pitched, they had a scout in the stands. I came back to Nichols for the fall.
Because you hit 90.
Yeah.
That's a magical number. Now it's 100.
Now you got to throw 100. So.
But it's interesting. I want to go touch on that, because I remember when you remember Jamie Howard, quarterback of LSU in the early to mid 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But he was playing for the Braves in the off season. I mean, it was but the minor league team, obviously in Greenville, I think.
Right.
And I was like, so was that an option for guys? I guess you played college baseball, so you couldn't do it. He played college football, which just made it different.
Yeah. So Jamie was, he played college football, but he also during the summer, during the downtime, he'd go play professional baseball.
Because he could still be an amateur in
You can do
football.
both, right?
I see.
SEC, believe it or not, Bo Jackson lost his eligibility back in the day because the SEC didn't have that rule. I don't know if you remember that. Remember that?
Before.
He couldn't play football his last year because he signed with the Braves. SEC because the SEC used to look at it.
That's so crazy, because it was like.
Yeah, they looked at it as if you're a pro in one sport, you're in pro in every sport.
Not an amateur.
They've obviously changed that rule.
A lot.
Long time ago.
Guys get
after
paid.
Bo Jackson.
Guys get paid a lot of money. What would Bo make?
Oh, man.
Bo and Herschel. Let's talk Bo, because he was playing two sports. I mean, Bo would make so much money in the NIL era.
It'd be crazy.
I mean, I try to tell young kids today, now, we've seen great athletes, but Bo and Herschel were just two things in college, I've never seen before. You get to the pros, everybody kind of gets bigger and all that, but, I mean, I'd never seen anything like it.
Yeah, Bo Jackson was, obviously, I got to play against Bo after he already hurt his hip in baseball, which was kind of good but kind of bad.
Helped a little bit, though.
But he was the freakish athlete of probably any generation. Him and Deion Sanders were probably two guys that I played against who were both just freaks on the field.
What about Deion?
Yeah.
Oh God, I was doing Braves games when I first got there. He was still doing Braves, and he was something else. And you look at Deion now, and you see him coaching, and now they did a Saturday Night Live skit, which was hilarious on him this week. Did you happen to see it?
I missed it.
You got to see it. It's like he's doing the whole primetime thing, and he's talking about they're up 29-0 on Friday night, and I had a game in Oregon, and I'm watching it. We went to dinner, and I was watching the game, and then they lost the game. In overtime, double overtime, and I'm like, and so they're like, Deion, what happened to you last night? He goes, it's 29-0, so I just went home, went to sleep. I woke up and saw the score. I was like, what happened? I mean, it's just funny, but when you look at him as a player and these guys like Bo, I mean, I don't know if we're ever going to see these kind of guys. And Josh Booty almost did it. He did play in the majors and NFL, not at the same time, but I mean, it's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, it is, and the crazy thing about it was most people don't know is Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson really learned how to hone their skills of baseball in the major leagues.
Right.
They didn't have time to play in the minor leagues because they basically told the Braves and they told the Royals, put me in the big leagues or I'm just going to play football. Right. So what they do, so these guys were learning how to play the game at a major league level, which is very hard to do.
And not just a major league level. I mean, Deion had that unbelievable World Series, dude.
He did.
I mean,
he did.
He was rolling that year. We lost to the, I say we, I was doing Brady.
Yeah, that's right.
They lost to the Blue Jays. Mm-hmm. And but then that year that Bo had, I remember he was in the All-Star game.
Probably around 88, maybe?
Maybe 89.
89,
It was 89 because I remember it was when I was dating my wife in the beginning. Okay. And he ran up the wall.
Up the wall, in Anaheim Stadium.
Yeah, Wayne Boggs, I think, hit that shot.
That's right.
And maybe one because they're both American League. Well, regardless, they had a squad. And I remember he was the first guy that I remember that broke the bat over his
leg. That's
over his leg. You see it a lot now, but we were like, he just slammed the bat on his thigh and it broke. I mean, I was like, this guy's. And then Brian Bosworth, we all know what happened in that football game. Ran him over.
Changed Bosworth's career.
Changed it all, right? And probably made him a better person.
Yep.
I mean, Boz is a good dude.
Knocked some sense into him.
So your career, though, going back, when you got out of college, your first-round draft pick. So I want to talk about that experience, man. You come out of Nichols, and all of a sudden you get drafted in the first round. I mean, that's got to be a rite of passage. That's an honor, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and especially from where I started to where I ended up. Like, I mean, I literally went from not a scout, even knowing who I was, to next thing you know, I was a top 10 prospect in the whole draft for Baseball America.
I mean, does that blow your mind?
It does. I mean, because you go from nothing to every night a scout's calling your house, because this was before pre-cell phones, right? The scouts want to call because they want to know everything about me, everything about my family. They want to know what's my ins, what's my outs, you know, what kind of past do I have? Have I ever been in trouble? You know what I mean? So they call all the time, and so it was, at the beginning, it was really exciting. Then it got to be like, whew, it kind of got to be overwhelming.
Yeah, you went to a whirlwind, huh?
You know, but it was such a blessing, you know, and then I ended up, like I said, got drafted in the first round by the Padres, and it's a blessing from a lot to have to do with my family and my mom and dad, the way they raised me. You know, my father was hard on me in a good way, right? Because he always wanted me to expect, not perfection, but just always make sure I'll go out there and put my best effort out there, win or lose, you know.
Yeah, there's your pops right there, man. What does he mean to you as far as?
He's my hero, you know what I mean? He is, you know, I see his ex-players who he coached at Nicholls State in the 70s, and every time I see him, they feel the same way about him, you know.
They love him.
He has a good soul about him. He's not a yeller, he's not a cursor, but he gets his point across.
Right.
And
that's all we ask for.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so but he's
still
my
with
hero.
us?
He is.
Oh, good.
He's my hero. So.
Well, hey, you're my hero too, Jerry. Also, your sons, Cam, obviously Scotty. You know, you talked about them. Your daughter played college softball. Sure. I mean, this is truly. We touched on it, but get into a little more. This is truly a family thing. When you talk about your grandfather, your great uncles, and your dad, maybe even uncles, I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, this is not just playing Little League or playing high school like I did. I mean, it's like playing, you know, college and maybe some of the minor leagues, and you were in the major leagues for so long. This is nuts.
Yeah, no, we are very blessed. The Sanders family is definitely an athletic family. Like I said, my great uncle, a couple of great uncles played for the Cardinals. My grandfather played in the minor leagues. My father. Now down to my son, you know, obviously Scotty was blessed to play Southeastern. Cameron blessed to play a little junior college ball in Florida and LSU for a year. My daughter plays softball and volleyball.
I love softball. I love going to softball games.
Myself as well. Softball in college. My youngest son, Jaden, believe it or not, was a really stud volleyball player. Had about 16 scholarship offers, and he decided just to go to Nicholls and study pre-med, and he coached volleyball.
Oh, so that's your fourth child?
Yeah, the baby. Yeah, he coached he was a student assistant for the Nicholls club and beach team.
So he played volleyball. That's a great sport too.
And now, so he's doing pre-med. What's that?
He does a two-man.
Yeah, he plays beach, but he also plays court.
Both.
Yep.
6 and 2. Okay.
Yeah, but he played both. But he loves volleyball, so now he runs the beach program at the Wellness Center in Thibodeau.
Does he?
Yeah, and he's assistant director for the club program for the girls.
Oh,
so,
he's rolling then.
Yeah, he's enjoying it. And he's going to be pre-med and go to law school.
That giant hospital in Thibodeau.
That's right.
Okay,
Thibodeau Regional.
That thing's something else.
It
man.
is beautiful.
Congratulations on that. But now we get into the major leagues. Okay, now I want you to explain the difference to people, because I know people out there, a lot of you know, but the ones that don't. The difference between being in the minor leagues when you're taking the buses everywhere, you got to be on a bus and you don't get paid as much. You might have because you're a first rounder, so I guess you did. But the fact is that they don't get paid like they do now. I mean, the first rounders really get paid.
Yes.
But I mean, you guys got some good money, but not like this kind of money.
100%.
But the fact is the difference between being in the minors and when you get called up to the majors. And what was that first time like when you got called up? How'd it go?
Well, it was amazing. I still remember like it's yesterday. I was in Tacoma, Washington, and I was actually just landing, like I said, the hotel waiting to go. I was going to pitch that night. And once again, this is pre-cell phone, so the hotel phone rings, and I reach over and grab it, you know, thinking it's one of my buddies from another room.
Sure.
Prank calling, you know what I mean?
Sure, right. That's what they do.
It was Randy Smith, who was my GM.
Oh, wow.
In
I knew
San
Randy,
Diego.
okay.
And believe it or not, Randy was the scouting director when he drafted me as well.
Was this 93?
This was 1993.
93, yeah.
And he was like, Sandman, just calling to let you know you're not pitching tonight. And I freaked out. I'm like, I am a really big time competitor. I was like,
you love it.
I'm like, what? Why? No, why? And he's like, because you're going to pitch tomorrow, the second game of a doubleheader in San Diego. And I think I jumped up and hit my head on the ceiling, to be honest, right?
Of course you did, man.
He said, we're facing the Rockies. He said, Andy Bennett has got game 1, you got game 2. He said, so pack your stuff. We're going to get you a taxi and get you to the airport. So I literally said, I was so excited. called my mom and dad and everything, and then ran downstairs, got a USA Today, pulled out the paper, started looking at the Rockies lineup, kind of giving me an idea what I want to do.
That's so good, man.
And I got on the plane, and so the next day, obviously I flew in that night. The next day I went to the park, and Tony Gwynn had 1,999 hits at this point.
Oh, shoot.
Right. So game one, back then in San Diego, we weren't the greatest team, and we didn't get a ton of fans, right? But we were in Qualcomm, which is a football stadium.
It's a football.
So it's humongous, right? Well, this night,
it was called Jack Murphy.
Jack Murphy.
Jack
right.
Murphy back then, yeah.
Jack Murphy, and then Call kind of ended up, sponsoring. So I go game one. Well, game one, I'm not really on the roster yet because they're going to once the game, they're going to take somebody off the roster, slide me on. So I just end up watching the game in the video room because I like watching on TV because you can see more, So I'm sitting in there, and so I have no clue how many people out there, nothing. And
oh, that's right.
So Tony,
did you not know it was just going to be he's going for 2,000?
I did know that, but I didn't know.
You didn't know it would be packed. Right.
So he goes 0 for 3, which doesn't happen very often.
Never.
Right? So
like that guy was a hitting machine.
He was a machine. So I'll go out and start game 2 and of the thing, and he got a hit. I want to say his first or second at bat. Place went nuts, obviously, but there was like 58,000 people there. And
what?
Yeah.
You're pitching in front of 58,000?
So the crazy,
that's gotta blow your mind.
So the crazy thing about it was, so I think I ended up beating the Rockies. We won 5-1 or 6-1, something like that. Believe it or not, I got my first hit in the RBI in that game. And when I was walking off,
you got a hit in your first game? I think I looked it up. You only got 25 in your whole career.
That's right. But my first game, I got a hit and an RBI.
I was going to say, you only had 8 of those in your career. 4 came in one game.
That's right.
So, you weren't hitting a bunch of those.
That's right. And so when I came out, I think I went 5 2/3, something in that range, or 6 1/3. And when I walked off, it was towel night. So when I walked off, for the first time, I looked up in the stands, and like everybody was waving their towels, And so I tipped my cap.
This is crazy.
So I tipped my cap, you know what I mean? And I sat down, and when the game started, after the game, my mom and dad was there, all my friends and family. I was like, man, they had a lot of people there tonight. I was like, they were like, yeah, Scott, there was like 50 or 60,000 people. I said, well, I didn't really notice them until I walked off the field. And they thought I was lying, but I literally didn't notice anybody in the stands.
You said you didn't win the game?
No, we won.
You won the game. You got a win, too?
Yeah, I got my win. Yeah, my first
You got a win in your first game, 58,000 fans. You got a hit in RBI. You should have retired then, the greatest night of my life.
That's right.
I mean, think about that. That is a magical start.
It is.
And I'm going to say this. I'm a guess, and I don't know. But the biggest crowd you could have maybe played for before that was less than 10,000.
Oh.
Way less, right?
Maybe 1,000.
That's the thing. Think about this, man.
Maybe 5,000 6,000 in minor leagues if they have fireworks.
If they had fireworks. Fireworks are great. I get it. I'll go for fireworks. But when you, this is blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Nichols probably had 1,000 maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
If LSU came, that might be 2,000.
2,000 for LSU. And then you go to the minors, and I've seen minor league parks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 1,000, 2,000 maybe. And then you might have a
You
big
can get a
one.
popcorn guy.
Then you got, you got your own popcorn. Come on, I'm ready. But the fact is, that is a mind-blowing thing to start like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it was amazing. And like I said, Tony Gwynn got his 2,000th hit on that same day. And believe it or not, like a few years later, he got his 3,000th hit on the same exact day a few years later.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, let's talk about Tony since we're there,
Yeah.
because Tony, I would go down, being part of the Braves production group, I would get there 3, 4, 5 hours early before the game, like the players do, and we're just getting ready for our stuff. And we don't. If it was a guy you wanted to see, you could go down to the cage and watch him do batting practice. And Tony was just a work of art, spraying the ball wherever he wanted. Sometimes he would tell you where he's going to do. If he saw you looking at him closely, he goes, "I'm going to take this one down the line. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to pull this one." But he was he pushed things away. I mean, he just had a way about him. Like Mark McGwire was another one when he started doing steroids. You had to go watch that batting practice.
That's right.
But when you talk about Tony Gwynn, I want you to say the greatness, because we had our first game in San Diego State this year, so I went in their Hall of Fame room and saw all the greats. They got so many from every sport. I was shocked. I mean, everybody knows Kawhi Leonard in basketball, but so many great football players, Marshall Faulk being one, and like Joe Gibbs and Coryell coaches, but they had so many. But when I saw Tony Gwynn, he dominated that Hall of Fame room. And I wanted you to explain why and why he was so great, because, I mean, he's one of the greatest hitters literally of all time. And I don't think anybody could say anything about that, because he flirted with 400 a couple times.
He did. Tony was one of a kind. Tony was amazing talent, right? Incredible hand-eye coordination. But it was more the person he was, right? It's
Yeah.
the way how he treated people, whether you were somebody selling popcorn, like we said earlier, or whether you just the CEO and owner of the Padres,
Right on.
right? He didn't treat anybody different.
Yeah.
He his work ethic was second to none. You know, he was, believe it or not, one of the first guys that he was ahead of the curve. He loved video, right? A lot of people didn't. Video wasn't a big deal.
The great ones did.
He would go home every night. He had a little, back in the day, it was like I said, it was a little tape. He'd put it in and watch every at bat
This
over
is
and
what
over
Greg
and
Maddox
over.
and Tom Glavine did as pitchers.
Yeah.
I mean, every
You know,
every pitch over and over.
But he had his routine. He'd get to the park at 1 o'clock and he'd have a cup of coffee, see the trainers. He'd go to the cage at 2:30. He'd by himself with a tee and just hit balls off the back of the net for 30 minutes. I mean, and if he might want to hit 50 in a row perfect. If he didn't, he'd start all over. But he was just a perfectionist, you know.
Yeah.
But he was just such an incredible human. You know, I miss him. I wish you know, rest in peace, Tony. But like, he went too early because he touched so many lives.
He did.
He mentored me. You know, when I got to the big leagues, even though he was a hitter, you know, he knew the only way the Padres were going to ever be something is they had to build from within, right, from under through the farm system, because they didn't have the money to go out and drop on, you know, the big free agent. So he knew it was, I got to get these young kids to buy in. And that's what happened. We built from within around him. Then they picked up Caminiti and Finley, and the next you know we in the World Series.
I don't want to like go exaggerating here. I'm just thinking. I was thinking. That's why I was kind of looking away when you were talking about the guys that were just hitters. I'm not talking about home run hitters. He hit a few of those, but that wasn't his game. But like the Wade Boggs was always up there. George Brett was always up there. Obviously, way before my time. Ted Williams was like considered the greatest hitter. Just, you know, guys that just had it down. Will Clark from New Orleans had a beautiful swing. You know, Will is a little bit older than you.
I played against Will a good bit.
Played against Will, right?
Yeah.
I did in high school a lot.
Sweet swing.
Golly, that swing was beautiful.
Yeah.
But Tony Gwynn, I'm trying not to use too much hyperbole, but honestly, if there's a greater hitter, there's not been many, and I can't think of that many. I mean, he was just a pure hitter.
Yeah, he was, and Tony is so funny, and he's a perfectionist as well. So, batting practice every day. You know, you always have 3 to 4 to 5 rounds, right? Batting practice.
Sure.
First round, doesn't matter where the ball was pitched, he was going to hit it to left field. 5, 6 cuts, right? Second round, he's going to hit 5, 6 balls up the middle.
That's what I'm
saying. No matter where the ball's
guy
pitched.
could do that. I mean, on any pitch.
Then the third round, he'd pull all 5 or 6 balls. Sometimes it'd be whatever, 6, 8, whatever they're throwing. And believe it or not, round 4 and 5, he would launch balls into the seats, and he could do it. But it wasn't his game, right?
His game, but he could do it.
But he could do
saying.
it, right?
Yeah.
But he, and I'm gonna tell you something really crazy, because as amazing as a hitter as he was, the one thing I used to do, I would pitch once every 5 days, right? So the days I didn't pitch, I would sit on the bench and try to pick up pitches, the pitcher tipping pitches, right? And I would go and tell my hitters, like, hey, if his hands come down fast, it's gonna be a breaking ball. If his hands come down slow, right?
That's great.
All that, right?
Oh, right.
Sometimes they tip their glove, right? Different things. So Ken Caminiti loved it, right? If I was telling Ken Caminiti what the guy was doing, what he was tipping, and Tony was sitting to his left or to my right, he would get up and leave. He did not want to know what was coming.
Right.
And I talked to him, I said, Tony, if I can tell you that you're going to know every time he throws a slide, he says, Sam, he called me Scooter, actually. He said, Scooter, I don't want to know. He said, because it's going to mess me up. He says, all I want to do is see the ball and hit it.
Hit the ball.
You know what I mean? Which is,
he's not the first great one that said it just like that.
Yeah, but
Yogi Berra. Yogi Berra was like, I don't care. I just want to see that ball and hit. I watched the thing on Yogi, and it was like, it shocked me how great this guy was. It was a big documentary.
Right.
And I think any baseball fan alive should watch this thing on Yogi Berra. Before we take a break, you also played with some greats in Seattle, and when they were young, you know, like Ken Griffey was older than you, but still. I remember when Griff came up in '87. Straight to the majors almost, and I have his card. I just remember getting at a gas station. In '87. I'm in college, and I'm like, I still got this card. I'm like thinking, I wonder what this is worth. And it's in the plastic still. I'm like, but Griffey is, you talk about great hitters. Now, I mean, he's right up in the upper echelon, a guy that hit well over 500 home runs, maybe even 6.
Probably so.
And there's no doubt that this guy did not do steroids. I'm not going to say anybody's 100%, but I'm 99.9. Guys like him and Chipper Jones, they did it clean in a dirty era, right? 100%. So when you talk about playing with Ken Griffey, and we'll bring up A-Rod and Randy Johnson too, because that team was loaded with young guys. But did you know the greatness of Griffey? I mean, he was already great when you got there, but he was really one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. So Tony Gwynn was amazing hitter, right? Ken Griffey Jr. was like
everything,
an alien on the baseball field.
Yes, he was.
I mean, there was nothing he couldn't do. He ran, he threw, he hit for power.
He'd make great catches.
I mean, he'd do and everything. And once again, same thing. One of the most amazing teammates I ever had. You know,
Yeah.
His father, Ken Griffey Sr., is probably one of the reasons, right? Ken Griffey Sr. is an amazing man. You know what I mean? And I always say the apple never falls
He's
far
part
from
of my favorite team of all time.
Right.
Okay, the 75,
Yeah,
76
yeah.
Reds.
Yeah.
I can name all 25 right now because
Yeah.
I love that team.
But Griffey's the same thing. I mean, Griffey was, at that point, he was an icon, had his own shoe when baseball players didn't have their own shoe, you know what I mean? But same thing, he came to the park with a smile on his face. He joked and laughed and picked on everybody, but he didn't feel like he was better than everybody on the team. He knew he was better than everybody on the team, but he just blended in.
He was a perfect kind of cockiness.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
he hit balls, like that swing he had is just, he'd launch balls, and batting practice was absolutely
I mean, honestly,
stupid.
that swing, okay, we're going to get more into this. I'm going to take a break because I want to come back with that, and then I want to get you talking about this year's playoffs.
Yeah.
And what's going on with that, and your ideas, and it's kind of become a sport that parody has kind of taken over. I mean,
time.
and always kind of in some way has, because the Braves, I remember going from worst to first, but there's teams in here that we didn't expect before the season, that's for sure, and they play great baseball and they deserve to be there. But we're going to come back and talk about that and a little bit of A-Rod. I want your opinion on him and his future steroid use and what that did to the game as well. We'll come right back here on Primetime Sports, and don't forget, you Saints, LSU, Tulane football fans, we're going to get you covered. I got my man Logan coming out the bullpen. We're going to talk about that at the end of the show as well. See you back.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll at the mid-city lanes, the home of rock and roll.
Hey, welcome back. Thank you for enjoying that break. Hey, I want to talk to you about some more things coming up later, but as far as taking care of our sponsors, that's one thing. Because, I mean, I don't really say that very often, but you see the commercials. These are the people that support the show, so please get out and support them as well if you like this show. Hey, but getting back here, let's get back to baseball. And we were talking about Ken Griffey Jr. Is one of the players that Scott Sanders, a Thibodaux native, he was born in Missouri, correct?
Hannibal, Missouri.
Born in Hannibal, Missouri, which his family was, but he moved over to Thibodaux when he was 18 months old.
Yeah, just a baby.
Grew up, went to Thibodaux High School. He obviously went to Nichols, which is right there in Thibodaux. Let me ask you, before I get to Ken Griffey, Thibodaux and Nichols. I used to play in a basketball tournament down there every year, high school. It was some big deal. And where is South Terrebonne? Is that?
That's in Berg, Louisiana, right outside of Houma.
Yeah, they had a tournament. I think it was a big tournament. That's where I met Hodson the first time.
They always had a really good basketball team.
Yeah, and it was fun. We looked
yeah.
forward to that. We had a good team too, so it was fun going down there. But moving forward, I want to talk. You had Griffey, and you had Alex Rodriguez and Randy Johnson, and we can go on Jay Buhner, Edgar Martinez.
Yeah, exactly.
Edgar Martinez, now that's a guy. That's the one I should say. He was a professional hitter.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even going to talk about him now, but let's go ahead and say anybody that watched baseball in the 90s, Edgar Martinez, did he finally make the Hall of Fame?
He finally did.
Because he certainly should. I mean, this guy was y'all had a great squad back then.
No, it was loaded, yeah. A-Rod, obviously, at the time was maybe only 23 at the time. You know, trying to kind of find his way in the league. Obviously, he was an absolute stud, you know. But really went on to obviously have a good career and played for a very long time. But he's same thing. He was 6'4", 210-pound shortstop, you know. But that was before Cal Ripken was only shortstop ever that size.
I lived in D.C., Baltimore area when Cal was there. Yeah.
But he was a man child, and he worked hard. You know what I mean? Put a lot of time in, and made a lot of good plays. Had an incredible arm. But same thing. Randy Johnson was just he was.
He got that first big deal. Yep. Because I know he signed the giant one with the Yankees, right. But before that, he got
Rangers.
10-year, $250 million with the Rangers, and that's not an era that they weren't giving $25 million out. Now that's kind of common.
First time ever, yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, that is a commitment, and it turned out to be a great deal because salaries started popping up. But there's Randy Johnson, and when I talk about intimidating pitchers, guys that just because you never knew. I was actually my only perfect game I ever was at, right. And I was in the press box. For it was when he pitched against the Braves. Yeah. And he got the perfect game. I think it was with the Diamondbacks maybe.
Right, it was Diamondbacks.
I think it was Diamondbacks, yeah. So, but the fact is that you had some guys that are Hall of Famers, true and blue, all those guys. And I'm not sure with A-Rod and the steroids, he'll be in one day.
Right.
But they're holding those guys back a little bit. But
100%.
the fact is, I mean, did you know the greatness when you were watching it?
Yeah, 100%. Those three guys, they stick out like a sore thumb. You know, like Randy Johnson on game day, like you didn't talk to him. Like he was
intense.
He was mean. Like he was.
He admits that.
And honestly, the other days he was just a normal, typical lefty. You know what I mean? Kind of goofed. I like to goof off. And great story. One day we were on a plane. We were flying somewhere, and he was just like, you know, just reading a newspaper or something. And I was like, "What are you doing, Randy?" He's like, "I'm looking for yard sales." I'm like, "Okay, for what?" He says, "I like to collect old albums." So he said, "I look at yard sales."
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And I get in a taxi and I go around and just, if I see, I call it.
That's very cool.
He calls and says, so you imagine doing a yard sale and you got some albums and Randy Johnson
6'11"
pulls out of the taxi.
He's Randy Johnson. He's 6'11". I mean, that was an era. I mean, you had some tall pitchers, but that was the tallest of all time. I mean, you got to be like, if you're a batter, there's two things that when you think of Randy Johnson that aren't necessarily related to greatness on the field that I think is, I remember where I was in Vermont when I'm watching the All-Star game and John Kruk.
Yes.
John Kruk was in the batter's box and he was throwing balls right at his head.
Yeah, and he was,
I mean, and then he, then he just put the helmet on backwards.
Right.
And actually Kruk, when I had testicular cancer.
And Kruk had hit too.
Kruk was another professional hitter, but Kruk is the guy that kind of helped me through. He was doing TV, and then I was doing TV. So I remember calling him, and he was very, very helpful for me as a human being. But Kruk, and then the second one, my producer reminded me of it. I hate to laugh, but when he
blew
the bird up, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
spring training.
I think they're playing the Blue Jays or something.
In Arizona, yeah. Spring training.
It's spring training.
That's right.
And it was Blue Jays, though. Yeah. And
ball went to the backstop.
And dude, you just saw this puff of feathers just blow up on a pitch. I'm like, what just happened? Yeah. And the Sports Center played that forever, but you knew the bird thing right away.
I knew the bird was coming,
Did you ever think about a bird?
No, never. That is such a freak of nature thing happened, but it's iconic. People still play that video.
I mean, nuts, right? I mean, like, that was like 30 years ago.
Oh, yeah. Crazy.
I mean, so.
But you know what's crazy about Randy Johnson? A lot of people don't know, but he went to USC, University of Southern California, on a basketball scholarship.
The real USC, right?
Yeah. He went on a basketball scholarship. And ended up playing baseball as well, and stopped quitting basketball. But him and Mark McGwire are teammates in college.
They were. That's right. Mark was a great player at USC.
You have two literally iconic MLB guys on the same team.
You know, when I think about these steroid guys, it's like, I hate that they're going to totally be judged on that because they had such amazing careers before that. I mentioned Barry Bonds. I was doing, that he was in the National League forever, obviously with the Pirates, and he had just a great career. He was one of those first 30 for 30 and 30 guys. Now your boy is going 40 and 70, meaning 30 home runs, 30 RBIs.
Cunha's a beast.
And I think he did 40-40. Barry and Jose. If Barry didn't, I know he was close. But
Barry did it.
But Acuna, went 40 homers and 70 stolen bases. That's just an incredible mix of power and speed. But Barry was one of the first. But he was such a great player. Alex Rodriguez was such an amazing player. Roger Clemens was one of the greatest, and still my favorite pitcher of all time, with all due respect. I loved Roger. I just liked he was a gamer, and then we mentioned somebody else. But the fact is, Caminiti got into it. But there's so many, and I think it was because a lot of these guys are like seeing, like, let me use Bonds as an example. I'm not a Bonds fan as a human being. I've been in the locker room with him. He's not the nicest dude in the world.
No, he's not.
But I liked him. I didn't dislike him as a player. I just thought he was a little bit of an elitist. But the fact is that they, like, he's a guy looking in '98 at and you can attest to this. You were around. At guys like Sosa in particular, McGwire as well, but to a little lesser extent, because McGwire had already hit 47, 50 home runs, right? He wasn't like, but Sosa, he was a 25 home run hitter.
30 at the most.
Right, and so all of a sudden he's seeing 66, and he's like, this is BS. I'm better than both these guys. So he's dabbling because he just wants to keep up with the Joneses, and I can see it. And there's other guys that were doing it because the testing wasn't as stringent, and maybe they can make more money. And one guy that pops in my mind is Brady Anderson.
100%.
The guy had 9 home runs.
He had 51.
And he had 51. That was nuts. And I love Brady. I was in Baltimore at the time. I was in D.C., but they didn't have the Nationals, so I love baseball. So I went to at least 25, courtesy of Ben McDonald, 25 Orioles games a year. And I'm like, Brady was like, and I'm watching this. I'm like, how does a guy go from 9 to 51? And we didn't know a lot about steroids. And we knew they were around, but we didn't know.
100%.
But did you see a lot of it?
Yeah, it did. So, I tell people all the time, they ask me, how do you feel about, I look at a player, did you dominate your era?
Yeah.
If you did, you probably deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. We can go back to the 50s and 60s. Alcohol was prevalent, right?
Yeah. Well, pills were prevalent too, the uppers.
Right. Amphetamines, right?
Amphetamines,
then we got to the 80s. Cocaine was
big.
it. Then it became the steroid. Every generation, if you go back, people don't talk about Babe Ruth without saying that he was a drunk, right?
Right.
But
does drinking help you though?
No, but
it seems like that might slow you down a little bit.
Believe it or not, what people don't understand about the steroids, guys did steroids to keep themselves on the field.
Right.
Healthy, right?
To keep you healthy, yeah.
These guys, they hit balls 420 feet no matter what. So was the ball going 430? It doesn't matter. If it goes 305, it's still a home run, right?
Yeah.
So if it goes 440, it's still a home run. But it just got tricky. And what happened was, athletes are kind of like cattle, right?
Yeah.
You raise a bull a cow to what? To milk it or slaughter it, right?
Yeah.
That's what athletes are. So the owners didn't really care that much about guys, what they did on the field, what they did off the field, right?
I lived it. I saw Caminiti just get crazy weird looking.
But what happened was once people started getting 10-year deals, the owners got together and says, wait. They used to give 3 or 4. Tony Gwynn signed a 3-year, $16 million deal, 5-year, $16 million deal. That was big money, right?
Yeah.
But once they started giving Kevin Brown 10 years, $100 million, A-Rod 10 years, $25 million, they started saying, wait, what if they get off steroids year 2?
Right.
Now we're paying them $25 million a year for the next 8 years, and they go back to being a 30 home run guy, and now to 45.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, once the money started going up, now it's like, we better figure this one out, hurry. And so they got Congress involved. Once Congress got involved, that's when we had no testing policy.
George Mitchell. The Mitchell
100%.
report.
We had no testing policy back then.
Yeah.
Minor leagues, they tested for drugs and steroids, but in the major leagues there was no testing policy. So that's when they changed it all. But
it was crazy.
But it all changed only because of the money aspect of the game.
They had to.
Yeah, they had to.
It's
an investment, But like I said, the thing about we're just that cow. When that cow runs out of milk, they slaughter it and get a new one. You know what I mean?
Get a new one. Y'all are just cattle, right?
That's it.
Well,
and that's why sometimes people are like, these guys make too much money. I'm like, no, they don't, because you never know when tomorrow is your last day. I mean, you go out there and hurt your arm.
Well, you mentioned the World Series portion too. The guy gets hurt, it's not his fault.
No.
They should pay him the full thing. I mean, that would bother me if they didn't, because he is part of the team,
right.
whether you're on the field or not. If you wanted to be. But maybe Pete Rose is another example. I want to say this because he was my favorite player growing up because he was a gamer. I tried to model my game. I dove head first. I did all that. Baseball was a love of mine. But, when you talk about the betting, and we all, at least most of my friends like to throw a little dollars on games. Just, not talking about a lot, just to have some fun. But when you're betting, what's your take on him, betting in general and then obviously betting on his own team?
Well, the one thing that they tell us in Major League Baseball is you can't bet on baseball,
right? You can't bet, right.
Because if you bet on baseball, now it becomes like the WWE, right? Everybody goes to WWE knowing that, okay, this is scripted.
It's scripted, yeah.
But we're just there for entertainment, right? So what Pete did was probably not right. And believe it or not, I don't know if you know the story, but the way Pete Rose got busted on baseball is some guy in the Cincinnati, Ohio area got busted with a ton of cocaine.
Yeah, I know the story.
And and so basically he went to the feds and said, hey, I know you got me, but
I got this.
But hey, how about this? Because
he wanted to get a lesser sentence. He was trying to, make a deal.
Because they tell us, we would go to seminars and they says, listen, you can bet on football, you can bet on basketball.
It's so prevalent now, though, in today's game because they advertise it, each sport does.
Right.
And they finally had to make a rule that players this year for football, because they were getting you, if you bet anything, now you can bet at other sports.
And not your own,
but if you bet on football yourself, you're going to get like a big suspension.
That's right.
And if you bet on your own team, you're going to get lifetime.
Lifetime, yeah.
So now they have real rules in, and now you understand what you have to do. Like, I feel bad for Ridley because he was betting on other sports.
Right.
He wasn't playing the NFL, and he sat out almost 2 years. And you see what a great player is. I mean, it's got a gray area there.
It is, but Pete was kind of his own enemy. Pete always kind of felt like he was better in the game.
No, he was.
And I met him a handful of times. But my first meeting ever, I was in Houston. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and Champ Summers, who played for the Reds at the time,
Champ,
played basketball for my dad at Nichols, and then ended up leaving and played baseball at Southern Illinois, I think it was, and ended up making the big league. So He left us tickets in Houston, so we got back to the hotel because we were staying, and Pete Rose was the first off the bus. Because normally every big league team, whoever's like the icon sits in the front seat of the bus, right? So he comes off, and I'm like, how you doing, Mr. Rose? Can I have your autograph? He says, kid, they got a whole busload of guys coming. He walked right in, you know what I mean?
That's what Franco Harris did us at the Pro Bowl.
So I'll be honest, that kind of
it rubbed you,
yeah,
just like
you know what I mean?
Franco. I'm like, I'm sorry, you're done with me.
Yeah, and so, okay, and then George Foster talking about Tony Concepcion.
George Foster hit 51 home runs, 52 even.
But, so all I have, so I'm never, but I still met Pete after, but Pete he makes, Hall of Famers don't really like him, so he'll never get in the Hall of Fame because until some of those guys give him his blessing, I think once he passes.
He rubs everybody the wrong way. He's not his own.
He's his own worst enemy, and he had some chances. All he had to do was say, hey, I screwed up. I've been on baseball. Ask for forgiveness. Andy Pettit's a perfect example. Nobody thought Andy Pettitte was doing nothing.
The greatest example.
But you know what? He said, hey, I screwed up. I got caught up in the times, and guess what? I screwed up.
And nobody remembers it because he said
talks about
Clemens did. It was the same period, and I understand why Clemens denies it, but the fact he doesn't want to tarnish his reputation,
100%.
but now he has more. Yeah. But the fact is Pettitte, and nobody remembers it. I didn't even talk about the playoffs yet, but real quick, what was your best pitch?
Slider.
You were a slider.
Yeah, sinker slider, but my slider was my old pitch.
Sliders weren't even around for they did them in the old days, and they wasn't even around for 20, 30 years. And then
back.
All of a sudden, Roger Craig was teaching people screwballs and all that slide. Hey, spitballing, did you ever throw a spitball?
I did it. I did a couple times in Japan when I played there because I figured if I got in trouble, nobody would know.
Right, nobody would know. Right, yeah. That's when did they pay you well over there?
They did. It was good. One of my favorite seasons of my life over there. I loved it.
What year was that?
I was 2001.
At the end of your career?
Yeah, right in my career.
Oh, that's in the heyday of me doing games too.
Yeah. I loved it.
But hey, in a nutshell, real quick, the baseball playoffs are here. You got the Astros and Rangers. It's a Texas thing for the American League. And it's still weird for me to say Astros American League, but the old timers, they were in the National League for a long time.
Right.
And then you have the other side, which is the
Diamondbacks
and Phillies. Mm-hmm. Now that's not sexy for TV, but what's your take on these series?
Well, obviously I'm pulling for Bruce Bochy, my manager. We had 6
you had him in
years
San
together.
Diego, right?
Yep.
Right.
A-ball,
so he's with the Rangers.
He's with the Rangers, and they're 2-0. So I really. We have a big long text stream from the '98 Padres. We got like 50 guys on.
There he is, there, man.
And he's on it every night. They win. We send him a little text.
Oh, he's on a thread with y'all?
Yeah, and he shoots
That's
back. Last night
cool.
he shot back a heart. You know what I mean? But great man. Actually that guy made probably the biggest difference in my career because I started playing from when I was 22 years old.
You got to root for him,
man. I didn't know nothing.
Well, I'm going to root for him now. I was going to root for the Astros, but now I got to reach.
I knew nothing about the game of baseball. I thought I did, but he taught me so much about it. He was a catcher by trade, obviously.
I remember him as a catcher.
I still remember when I got called up to the Padres in '93. I pitched like 3 games or 4 games, and he came to me and was like, he's like, Sam, man, you don't have to try to strike everybody out. I was like, Bocho, that's what I like. He says, when you try to stop striking everybody out, you're going to strike more guys out. But he's a catcher, you know what I mean?
That's smart. He knows.
But he's an amazing man, amazing manager. He retired from baseball because of analytics. He hated analytics so much that they were shoving down his throat in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Sat out for 3 years.
You got to go with hunches.
Yeah. And now Chris Young, who's the GM with the Rangers, pitched for Boch. 6'10", Ivy League guy,
another tall pitcher,
sharp as can be.
Right.
But he brought Boch back, and Boch is using analytics, but he's also using his gut. You know what I mean? Which is why the Rangers are where they are without Jacob deGrom. You imagine if Jacob deGrom was there?
Crazy, right? Crazy.
Yeah.
One of the top 3 pitchers in baseball.
That's right.
You got Scherzer now to hopefully maybe do some damage. This game 3, I believe he's going to be pitching.
That's right.
It's going to be a tough one to beat Houston in that one because, who knows?
The Astros are the Astros. They've been there for many years. But
7 straight.
But 2-0 going back home.
I know they want the Phillies to TV people do for the championship. At least you have a big market.
I don't think the Diamondbacks can weather the storm, to be honest. Phillies were there last year. Diamondbacks are just happy to be there, you know what I mean? So.
Hey, we got gifts for you. And Mr. John's Steakhouse on St. Charles Avenue in the Garden District.
Looking forward to that.
This is nice. And you got your boy Desi Vega, Paul Varisco own it, Archie Rodenkirk. These are great human beings, and they got a great thing going over there. Archie Manning loves to go there, too.
Thank you, my brother.
As well. And then I got 2 shirts for you because Delvin, bro, we made it through a whole show. Delvin, if you're just joining in, he couldn't make it today. He's a former Saint cornerback, one of my favorite Saints of all time. And without injury ending his career, I think he could have been in the top 3 cornerbacks in Saints history. That's how good that guy was. But here you go. We got 2 colors for you, and these are 2 of my favorites. You got black when you're feeling a little bit naughty.
That's right.
It's Halloween, you know.
That's right.
And then you got this sky blue, which I love. They call it a let's just call it sky blue. Right. They call it something else. But here, we're going to get you on some signatures here. Now, I know you played at Nichols. I know you wouldn't sign that, but your son played at LSU. Would you mind signing that bat and helmet? Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Scott Sanders, and I got you in that gold. But he's in Nichols. Hey, all you Colonels, don't worry. He still loves y'all the most.
Right.
He does that, and we're going to get him on a football, too, so I can have that. Hey, coming up, hey, I got to give you some of your local news you like the most to see. You know what I'm talking about. It's the Saints. Man, they had a tough game. I didn't get to see any of it, thank goodness. I was on planes, trains, and automobiles getting back from Oregon. And then the LSU Tigers, how about them? They looked impressive. And the Tulane Green Wave did on Friday night as well. So we're going to have all that coming up with my man Logan out the bullpen in the back right here next on Primetime Sports.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports, and I don't want to say it real quick, but let's start here. Hey, art for art's sake, I want to thank all of y'all 2 weeks ago for going out there about a week and a half ago, because it was record-setting performances out there at places like Elysian right there, and then 3900 block, Emily Morrison's spot over there on Magazine Street, and of course Sotra, which is in the same building. That is a dormant for inspired living. That's this interior design and household stuff that you could use for your place, and all kind of cool things, bedding and all that as well. And then you have our girl Mariah that came over here from West London Boutique, BTQ. That stands for West London Boutique, and that is across the street, down the block a little bit. And there's Mariah right there. She was on the show. So congrats to them. And we also have our friends over there at Esam Art Gallery. You know, Tony and Tracy, they're going to be promoting another big event coming up, kind of like Art for Art's sake, but it's going to be a Christmas thing that magazine does as well. So keep your eye on that in about a month and a half. But here, yep, there we go. Esam Art right there. There they are, Tony and Tracy Mose. Great artists, and they have some great contemporary stuff and some cool religious stuff-based things too. So check them out on the 3900 block. They're all in that one big 2-block area on Magazine by Task. Another one of our sponsors right there on that same block over there on Magazine. But let's get to our man Logan Graffia. Once again, if you're just joining us, Delvin Breaux was supposed to be on this show. He teaches at Booker T. Washington now. You know, he was a great Saint for a few years before injuries knocked him out, but he couldn't come. So I'm just blessed that we have a guy that works on this show. You've seen him before. It's probably his 6th time on the show, Logan Graffia. I don't usually have guests 2 weeks in a row, but look at you, man. We brought you back, and welcome back, man.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And Logan, I love that you love the local sports, so let's get right into it. I hear you're not happy with Saints offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael, so let's start right there. The Saints lost 20-13. I didn't get to see a down of it. I usually watch the game. I taped it. I was sick yesterday, so I didn't watch any of it, but I was following along on the plane, and I know we missed a couple field goals. I know that, you know, drives were stopped, and maybe, you know, that there was unimaginative play calling, but I want your opinion on the Houston game.
The play calling has been abysmal. It's not even just the Houston game. It goes back to even week 1 even. There's games that we've won even when the games have been called very horribly. One play that sticks
abysmal is a harsh word, so what does abysmal mean?
Well, abysmal is just downright just bad. And one play that stands out, one play that actually stands out that from the Houston game is a 4th and 4.
Yeah.
You need 4 yards, first down. The game's on the line. You're in the 2-minute drill. You throw a swing pass to Alvin Kamara, and he gets stopped short 2 yards from the first. You don't go vertical. You get stopped short.
Totally a screen pass, side pass, out in the landscape, and he didn't get it.
Later on in the game,
I did see that play.
So I don't think that play was actually in the 2-minute drill. That was like a drive before. But in the 2-minute drill, you're driving. Then you get into the red zone. You call basically a Madden play that we call 4 verticals. You send everyone out on a fly route, and you do it 3 times in a row, 4 times in a row actually, and it ends in a Derek Carr interception. I mean, I don't know what Pete Carmichael is thinking, but
he's just trying to get a long bound pass.
I don't know what he's thinking, but it just seems like he doesn't know what he's doing.
Dennis Allen, what's your take on what Dennis is doing?
I mean, him as a head coach, I'm not the biggest fan of, but him as a defensive coordinator, I think he's a top 5 defensive coordinator in the league. But as a head coach, I think he's bottom, like 30.
Bottom 30, meaning like those.
Meaning like
mean? Bottom 3 out of
bottom
30?
bottom 3. Probably have ranked 30th as a head coach in my opinion.
Well, he hasn't done great with the Raiders, and that's kind of a no-win situation back when he was there. I know that the Saints, he's a little under 500 so far as a coach.
10-13.
10-13, right. I know they expect a lot more. This year they're 3-3. They're expected to win like 9 or 10 games at least, and right now they're on pace for 8 or 9. So they're a little behind what people were expecting. The schedule is favorable. So what do you think? You know, every team, it seemed, I think, in the AFC South lost, right? So they didn't lose ground, which is not anything great, but they just didn't lose ground. Tampa's 3-2. The Falcons and the Saints are 3-3, and then you have obviously winless Carolina. So we don't have to worry about them. But can the Saints still win this division?
They have a shot. They really do. They have a very favorable schedule. They just have to get out of their own way. The defense is playing lights out. They only gave up 20 points against Houston. And that just shows you how elite this defense is. It's the offense. I'm not going to put everything on Derek Carr because everyone is going on tangents on social media and everything, having a World War debate saying it's all
I
Derek.
think Carr's going to be fine.
Having World War II like type of debate saying it's all Derek Carr's fault.
He's had shoulder injury, okay, but he's back now.
And I'm not even going to really even put it on the shoulder injury. He's gritting it out.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, he played very kind of well in the Houston game. I mean, you don't play horribly when you go out there and throw 300 yards. He also threw the ball 51 times.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It just seems like also the run game just seems like it hasn't been able to get going in a way because, I mean, you're feeding Kamara the ball every time. And you know that the Texans are kind of sniffing that. DeMeco Ryans was a former linebacker.
He's a great coach.
He's a great coach. I absolutely love DeMeco Ryans. And you know for a fact that they watch game film, and I'm sure that they know when Kamara's back there, he's going to get the ball 9 out of 10 times.
Right. Well, Jamal Williams, is he going to be back?
He should be back from IR very soon. I know Jake Hayner just came back from suspension.
Jamal Williams, we didn't expect him to lead the NFL in touchdowns like he did last year, but you expected more out of him. He's been hurt, so hopefully that will give them a bruising presence in the backfield. Let's talk about two teams that had good weekends. So Tulane Green Wave on Friday night against Memphis. That was a very tough matchup because Memphis is having a very good year. They've got a nice defense, and they can move the ball on offense, and Tulane got a big victory, in my opinion, on the road at 31-21. Couldn't be happier for Coach Fritz and his guys.
Absolutely, and the one player that stood out the most was actually Mekhi Hughes, the running back.
Yes, he did.
131 yards rushing against Memphis. I mean, like you said, they are a good team.
Yes.
And then, of course, you got Michael Pratt, who's going to be playing on Sundays very soon. This Tulane Green Wave team is very sneaky, and I think they are very good team.
I think they can possibly win the rest of their games and go 11-1. And
I think they could win out too. I absolutely agree with that.
And then you got a bowl. It'd be a New Year's Bowl again. Hey, moving forward, the LSU Tigers. Listen, that's another game I couldn't watch. I will watch it tonight probably, but I have it taped, and I've already seen Tulane because that was Friday. But the Saints and LSU I haven't. But I just kept following the score, and they kept scoring and scoring. This is what this team does.
Absolutely. This offense is top 3 in the country. The only other 2 teams that are above LSU stat-wise is Washington, of course, with Penix, and then you have Oregon with Bo Nix.
Yeah, and Caleb Williams, right?
And then LSU was ranked 3rd in terms of offense. 2 of those teams
lost this week, right? And I know that plays a part in the Heisman. Does that help Jaden Daniels' chances? Because, 2 losses is not a death knell. They can win the rest of their games possibly.
It shouldn't be a death sentence for Jaden because, I've mentioned this on social media many times. Lamar Jackson won the Heisman, and his team lost 3 times, and if you want to count the LSU bowl loss, 4. So I think Jaden has a chance to win the Heisman. I really do.
Well, and the Pels in 5 seconds, what do you think?
Healthy Western Conference final. If Zion or Brandon Ingram is hurt, A seed.
A seed at best, really. All right, Logan, appreciate you coming off the bench, man.
No problem.
Hey, get this guy a job. He knows his stuff, man. Logan Graffia, right here. He does it all. He can shoot camera. He can produce stuff for you, direct. He got it all. Even a little audio if you need it, man. Right here on Primetime Sports. Hey, Delvin's going to come back. We're going to have him back probably next week, and we're going to have a couple other big guests come back next week right here on Primetime Sports. Have fun.